Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joanne Kazmersky, the IABC Florida Chapter President. On the call with me is two of our board members, Megan Woodworth and Steve Kaufman. Absent from our board today is Doug Filorowski. He might be popping in, and Marcy Larson. We're happy to have you here at one of our professional development sessions, and we're happy to be at least welcoming Cindy from Crescenzo Communications. I should have practiced that, which was, did I get it? Say it again.
You got it right. Crescenzo Communications.
Yeah, Crescenzo Communications. What we're going to ask everybody to do on the call is to put your name, your company name, and your title in the chat if you haven't as well. And we're happy to have you all here. And I did recognize at least one of our international visitors, Ilza, is joining us. So it's nice to see when we have an international audience for the International Association of Business Communicators. So with that, I'm going to do a brief welcome of Cindy, if I may. So Cindy is the president of Crescenzo Communications, where she spent nearly 2 decades helping organizations around the world elevate their internal and external communications through data-driven strategies. She is a self-proclaimed numbers geek. We'll learn about that. It is communications measurement. And Cindy has a unique passion for turning data and audience insights into compelling communication strategies that drive real change. With a background in marketing, communications, and audience research, Cindy empowers communicators to use surveys, focus groups, and executive interviews to uncover what truly matters to their audience. Alongside her husband and business partner, Steve, she blends analytics with creativity to help organizations craft messages that inspire, engage, and transform how people connect. Let's give a warm welcome to Cindy. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so very much, IBC Florida. Thank you for having us. As we get started here, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Is that all up?
Yep.
Just a really great thank you to IBC Florida for having us. We absolutely love working with IBC chapters. And if there's anybody that is not a member right now on the call, please consider it. IBC has done amazing things for communicators around the world, and these chapters are really the heart of IBC itself. So I truly appreciate all the work that all the volunteers do for each and every chapter. And thanks so much for having us today. We really appreciate it. So as Joanne mentioned, my name is Cindy Crescenzo of Crescenzo Communications. We are based out of Chicago, and we have been in corporate communications now for well over, what is it, Steve, 27, 28, 29
years.
It's crazy. Steve started a long, long time ago. And I joined Crescenzo Communications right about 20 years ago now, which is mind blowing to me. And then just the beginning of this year, we welcomed our very first employee, our son, Zach Crescenzo, who is on the call today as well. So, you know, if you've ever been to a Crescenzo workshop, know that we are incredibly informal. And we really do encourage questions throughout. So feel free to drop them there in the chat. Steve and Zach are here to interrupt me whenever needed, and I'm happy to answer your questions as we go along. So I'm going to get this little box out of the way. And just to jump in here, because we have got a lot to cover, we've gone all over the world, and this is just a smattering of organizations we've had the pleasure to work with over the years to really help communicators understand the power of storytelling within an organization, the power of targeted content within an organization, the power of just how communications can truly, truly, truly be a strategic counselor within your organization, no matter how big, small you are, whether you're for profit, nonprofit. Everybody in communications is really working towards becoming that strategic partner in your organization. But the fact of the matter is that you cannot do that. You can't accomplish that if you're communicating in a vacuum. And that's what today is all about, is using measurement and listening to fuel a communication strategy that is rooted in what your audiences need, your internal audiences need. So many times when we go into organizations and work with communicators, we often find that measurement kind of falls by the wayside a bit. And it's understandable why, right? We all are on the constant churn of deadlines, constantly you know, the requests coming from all angles of the organization, to our editorial calendar, to just all the things that come up in life that affect the way we communicate and what we communicate to our audiences. So sometimes measurement becomes more reactive than proactive. So today I want to go through a couple of strategies of how to be more proactive, how to really put in a measurement strategy that supports and fuels your communication strategy going forward, as opposed to just that afterthought. Usually, when we talk about things that typically get measured, this is what we're seeing. You know, clicks, likes, views, shares, comments, opens. All of these elements are very important. I never want to give the impression that we shouldn't be tracking these things, but they shouldn't be the only things we track. This is not what compromises a measurement strategy. They are measurement metrics that we can use to help guide us. What we need to start to think about if we're truly going to be proactive in measuring is helping connect these outputs, these measures here that we see in front of us, with actual behavior. Because if you don't have a measurement strategy in place, you know, I've gone all over the world doing focus groups, surveys, one-on-one interviews, all of these things we're going to talk about today, to help people understand what truly works and doesn't work within our organization, what connects with our audiences. When we don't do that, or we do it more as an ad hoc kind of, we'll throw a survey out here, we'll do a quick poll there. Gosh, that's when our communications come across as being a bit disconnected with our audiences. It's usually when I hear, when we go into to do a communication audit for various organizations, I have the opportunity to sit down with employees across the organization. It's when I start to hear things like, I don't know why I get sent what I get sent. I don't know why they send me some of the things that I'm seeing. I don't know why I see some of the things that I see. It has nothing to do with me. And it starts to put this horrible feeling in employees' minds that, gosh, they don't really have a clue about what we do or how we do it. They're really feeling a little bit disconnected, and sometimes, unfortunately, feeling ignored, because they just feel all this stuff is just getting push, 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 without any really rhyme, reason, or strategy behind the communications we send to them. So that's one thing we're trying to avoid. The other thing is when we're not having a consistent measurement strategy in place, leaders in our organization start to undervalue communications. This is where we start to see the expectation of, hey, you're an order taker as a communicator. If I tell you to put something on the internet, just publish it. Here, just put this in an all staff email and send it out. Why? Because that's the way we've always done it. That mentality is usually a result of there not being a lot of feedback going back to our leaders and internal clients in our organization, and helping them truly understand, here is what our audience segments look like. It's not just employees. We actually have internal segments within our organization that have very unique, specific needs. Here's how we deliver those needs. Here's what they know. Here's what they don't know. Here's what works. When we can bring that data into our internal clients and our leaders, that's when the aha moment starts. That's when the light bulb goes on and our leaders start to value the power of internal communications as a strategic arm of the organization, as opposed to being that order taker. And finally, when we don't have that measurement strategy in place, not only do communications seem disconnected, people just start feeling unheard. We don't have a voice. Or, look, I've participated in your surveys in the past and I haven't seen anything come out of it. It's not worth my time. I've heard over and over and over again the term survey fatigue, which is a thing. It is definitely a thing. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to tackle that. But 9 times out of 10, a lot of it, maybe 80% of the time, it has to do with the fact that we ask for feedback, but we never tell people what we're going to do with it. What did we learn from it? How is your voice actually going to help craft and change how we communicate going forward? So, this is why it's so important to talk about measurement, not get so intimidated by it. As communicators, we're very creative people. We love, obviously, to tell stories, to be creative, to come up with communication campaigns. All of that is fabulous. We get a little intimidated by the numbers sometimes because it comes across as being the boring part of what we do, to be quite honest, right? The number crunching.
That's because it is the boring part.
No, it's not though. And it's not if you do it correctly, because what will happen is it allows you to open up conversations across the organization that not only tell you what's working or what's not, but I guarantee if you follow some of the things we talk about today, it's also going to fuel your editorial strategy. It helps you be more creative. Why? Because you're more connected with your audiences. You understand them better. So that's what today is all about, which is super exciting. To kick it off, and how do we get this all done? Number one, first and foremost, we need to avoid the biggest mistake in communications measurement, and that's relying on those metrics alone that we talked about at the very beginning of this presentation. Yes, those are the easiest things for us to get, especially nowadays. All of those metrics are at our fingertips, right? We're almost inundated with sometimes too much data, it feels like, but we do have easy access to views, opens, clicks, shares, that type of thing. Again, very important, but it's only part of the picture. If we're truly doing our job as communicators and being successful as communicators, we're all doing one thing in common, and that's influencing behavior. So, in order to figure that out, we've got to understand how to measure behavior. We've got to make sure that we take those metrics from wherever, from our different various channels, and we connect it to behavior. And we're going to talk about how to write survey data in the correct way, how to conduct a productive focus group or stakeholder interview to really help you figure out what questions can I ask to start to measure behavior and link them to those metrics that we're connecting. This 1-2 punch will give you an incredibly rich, insightful look at what truly is working and what's not in your communication strategy and what you need to do going forward. But with communications, it's tricky. And I want to admit that and get that out there, the elephant in the room here. As Joanne mentioned, I started out my career in external marketing communications. I used to be the director of marketing for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra for many, many years. And my sole job was audience research, understanding how to get people in those seats, understanding how to open up the world of classical music to a younger generation. All of that incredibly important, but I had to understand how to measure behavior. And so when we go inside the organization with corporate communications, it gets a little fuzzier, right? In the external world, I was able to draw a solid line for my communication efforts to dollar signs. I sales. I could really show people I sold X amount of subscriptions. I got X amount of people to renew because of my communication efforts. When we think about corporate communications, it does get a little fuzzier. Yes, there are points that we can draw to return on investment as far as we helped increase productivity because certain processes were more clear. Maybe we're able to save time and help people be more efficient because we've communicated new processes around that. All of that is valid, but those opportunities, let's be honest, are few and far between. So, how do we effectively measure behavior within corporate communications? I just fall back and have fallen back to the cardinal rule of marketing, and that is going back to know, feel, and do. If we start to think about all the communication efforts we create, and we say to ourselves, if I'm successful in communicating about this topic, any topic that you are communicating about, if I'm successful at it, what does my audience know, feel, and do because of our communications? So let me go ahead and show you this in real life and how this applies. I had the wonderful opportunity of working with John Deere a few years back and Crescenzo went in and did a full communication audit for them. So part of that audit, we asked them, what are your strategic priorities as a communication team? What are the things that you have to communicate that your employees should know? Because if you're successful in communicating them, it helps employees contribute to the success of the organization, helps them contribute to organizational goals. One of the things that came up was their mission statement. It was a very big deal, a strategic priority for them for across the organization that everybody understands, just not only knows the mission statement, but truly understands how it helps drive their success as an organization. So any topic, if you think about the strategic topics that you are communicating, you want to go ahead and stick it on a giant post-it and put it on the wall. The next step as a team is to ask yourselves, if we're successful in communicating about that topic, in this case, the mission, what will our audience know, feel, and do? As a result of this, doing this with the communications team at John Deere, here's just a smattering of the insights that we gathered during this exercise. They said if we're successful at this, our employees will truly understand the impact of our work. That whether you're putting nuts and bolts on a tractor, or maybe you're in corporate services running accounting, or maybe you're in R&D developing new sciences and technology for farming, no matter what we do, we truly help communities around the world survive. We help them cultivate land. We help them farm better. And the decisions that we make every single day affect people's livelihoods. That was the story thread that they wanted to make sure came across very clear in their communications around the mission statement. Secondly, if they know all this stuff, could you imagine the amount of pride and passion people have no matter what they do within John Deere? If we're successful at telling that story of the mission statement and connecting it to the influence their work has on people around the world. If we're successful about talking about all of this and the innovation that plugs into this, our employees will be excited about the future and feel like they specifically contribute to its success. So those are the emotions, the feelings we wanted to make sure if we're really successful in our communication efforts, people are going to know this and feel this. And as a result, what are they going to do? Well, we're going to break down the silos that are a part of basically every organization that has a huge history. John Deere is about 100 years old, that have very different silos of positions within the organization, a very diverse employee layout. So I've got people who sit behind a computer. I got people on a manufacturing floor. I've got people in a lab. There tends to be a lot of silos in organizations like that. They really wanted to communicate in a way that helps break down those silos, where employees are talking about what they do and how they contribute to success across the organization. In addition, externally, they become our biggest ambassadors as an organization. They wanted to have those conversations flowing, make them feel open to sharing stories, asking questions, and participating in communications. So when you take a look at what is on the screen here, and you look at these individual bullet points, well, these are all behaviors we are looking to influence. We're looking to influence the level of knowledge. We're looking to influence the level of impact we have on the people that we serve. We're looking to influence emotion. And of course, there are specific behaviors we're looking to identify that are connected to the communications we create.
Hey, Sam, I'm sorry to interrupt
Sure.
you, but I hope I get your name right. Kenneth Jawa, IBC member and communication specialist for the
Thanks for joining.
NAFRC.
Yep.
You said, do you have any information or document you can share for the communication audit process that you take clients through?
Oh, sure. We could talk through it, and I can actually provide that as, I can send like a PDF of that. But yes, our communication audits are usually always a mix of components that really help give, again, that well-rounded, insightful look at what works and what doesn't. So we usually kick it off with a survey and focus groups that work together to give you, we'll talk about this in 2 seconds, the numbers that you need, the statistical data, and the why behind the numbers. We do executive interviews and leadership interviews across the organization. Steve will then jump in with a vehicle analysis and take a look at give you an editorial review, basically. So, what are all the channels you use to communicate? How does it compare to industry best practices? Look at the content that you create. How does that compare to industry best practices? And then your editorial workflow. As a team, are we working as efficiently as possible to get the content that we need across the organization and publish it? So all of those things kind of work together to give you a really nice, well-rounded look, and we can outline that in a takeaway after the fact. But we're going to talk today about getting both numbers and qualitative data together to really help paint that picture. So what do we do with these behavior statements that we've just identified? And what we do is we take those bullet points and we create behavior statements. And these are statements that we use, and we've helped organizations or communication teams literally create little libraries of them around the strategic topics that they know they need to continually communicate. Um, from the no, feel, do bullet points, we then create these statements that are then used in surveys and quick polls at various times whenever we publish content related to the topic that really help us gauge people's agreement to these statements after seeing the content that we create. So, for example, we are an innovative company. What we do as an organization help us feed the world. We're committed to providing employees with knowledge and training. I understand how my specific role contributes to our mission. All of these statements were created doing the full exercise of no, feel, and do. We took those bullet points, we turned them into behavior statements, and then we put them on in Likert questions. They're called Likert scale questions. Uh, you could use it as a complete in your communication audit itself, or you could pull 2 or 3 of these as a quick poll if it relates directly to the content you just published. But it really helps you take those behaviors we're looking for and get quantifiable data to back it up. Are we achieving this? Do people feel we're an innovative company? If I just went through a whole communication campaign where I told the story of how different teams within our organization are developing new technology to help us farm in different communities, and then after that, I run a quick poll and I say, we are an innovative company. Tell me what you think about that statement. And I'm seeing either a lot of no opinions or disagree or strongly disagree, it's obviously giving me a red flag that maybe we didn't accomplish that in our communications. We got to start looking at content. We got to start look at delivery. What was missing? We'll want to develop focus groups to find out the why behind the numbers that we're seeing. But if you use the whole technique of no, feel, and do to create behavior statements, you're starting to develop a way to start to track behaviors you're looking to influence. And then you can connect them with the metrics tied to the content that helps bring those stories to life. So hopefully that makes sense. But I want to talk about surveys right off the bat, because surveys is the most popular way that we measure communications because it's so easy, right? Technically, out of all of the different ways you can measure your communication efforts, surveys are definitely more accessible. So some quick, easy rules for writing smart survey questions is, first and foremost, if you're going to do it yourself, and I really do promote, if you've got to find ways to measure on your own, right? You might not always be able to afford to bring a consultant in to do it for you. So you got to find effective ways to do it on your own. Survey questions it's a science. There's definitely a science in writing them correctly in order to get feedback that you could do something with. We want to get actionable feedback coming back to us. So first and foremost, you want to keep your questions neutral. For example, how strongly do you agree or disagree with the following statement? I see that all the time with Likert scales. You want to take the feeling out of it. You don't want to push to people and say to them subliminally, yeah, you either agree or disagree with this. Just let me know your response to the following statements. Let me know your level of agreement one way or the other. You don't need to push them in one direction or the other. You want to take the emotion out of the way that you state your questions so that people can answer objectively. You want to provide clarity whenever you can. The most big risk to sending out a survey or a pulse is different people in different areas of the organization interpreting the question differently. In order for your data to be solid, you can be confident that it's representative of the whole, we've got to make sure that everybody's interpreting the question and the options the exact same way.
So is the top one bad and the bottom one's good?
That is correct. So
Okay.
how would you rate your overall experience with the intranet?
Bad.
Again, something that I see all the time. It's not horrible, but look, when you put something that vague in there and you're not very specific, anybody can interpret that any way you want. Your overall experience, is it in finding my HR tools and my timesheet, or am I talking about finding the cafe menu, or am I talking about being able to locate people within my organization to ask them a question? What experience specifically are we talking about? So when finding work tools and information on the internet, being very specific, How would you rate your overall experience? That way, everybody is answering the question the exact same way, and your data comes back that much stronger. Be as specific as possible. So, for example, how often do you use the internet to access the latest company news? We've probably all read that question at some point in our careers, but think about that. How often do you use the internet to access the latest company news? Am I talking like 10 times a day? Is that mean frequently? Or do I interpret frequently as being, hey, I'm on there at least 3 times a week? That might be what frequent means to me. So I love to tell people actually within the last time frame, the last week, how often did you use the internet to access the latest company news? And then my options are very specific. I accessed it daily. I accessed it twice a week, maybe once a week, didn't access it at all. When you put it in that little week time frame, number one, it helps people relate to it way better. People are understand what kind of time frame am I looking for? Like how do I judge it? How do I rate it? And then when you're that specific, you can make the decision as is it frequent enough or is it, gosh, they're never going there. Because everybody is choosing from the same time frame. That specificity makes that data coming back to you something actionable, because everybody's rating it the same exact way. And then finally, the open-ended questions. I get asked a lot, how often do you use them? When do you use them? They are incredibly valuable because they help you do the why behind what you're seeing. You may not have time to pull together people for a focus group, or you may not have time to sit down and do stakeholder interviews. The open-ended question can give you a lot of flavor and color behind survey questions that you're using, but use them strategically, because if you have too many out there, especially in this day and age where everybody is way open to commenting via the keyboard, you got to do something with the data that comes back to you. And all that anecdotal stuff, it's not statistically valid, right? It's just a bunch of thoughts out there. It's very hard to quantify. So you want to make sure you use it at strategic moments. My two favorite ways to use them is number one, if on any Likert scale question somebody disagrees, I love to use what's called skip logic on a survey, where if people answer strongly disagree or disagree, they get a question that no one else sees if they agreed. Can you give us an example of why you disagreed with this statement? It gives you a nice little specific example of what is going wrong, like what is missing, what did people feel they needed to see but didn't, and that's why they're disagreeing. It helps give you some clarity around why people are disagreeing with your specific statement. The other way I like to use open-ended is using one word fill in the blank answers. It helps cut down on the fluff, like, a lot of detail that maybe you don't need. And so, for example, consider using one word, describe our culture using 3 words. So people would say, I think it's open, it's transparent, and it's positive. Whatever those 3 words are. But you could start to see when people start entering in those 3 words, what I love to do is create words clouds out of them by segment. So I might say, okay, all my frontline employees, here they are, here's how they describe the culture versus how people who are behind a computer all day. Do we have some gaps? Usually there are. But it's a great, easy way to kind of quantify a lot of the anecdotal data that is coming back to you. So great, cute little tips here for rules writing smart survey questions.
So before you add to the power question,
Yep.
our friend Ilse from
Hi,
Belgium.
Ilse.
To what extent do you consider cultural differences on the side of the employees? I know we've done some global surveys.
Oh, absolutely. So that's where the power of writing demographic questions along with any of the behavior statements that we put together, being able to use analysis to say, okay, now let's drill down. What are our audience segments and how do responses differ? Really incredibly powerful. On the flip side of that, identifying those audience segments ahead of time and really thinking, does this question translate the way that I intend it to within a specific culture, maybe different language, that type of thing. Whenever I have a global organization, always, always, always identify a partner within the organization, within those different regions or locations to work with you on, is this question landing, am I phrasing it the right way? Does it land the same way? Does it mean the same thing within your specific culture or language before that goes out? Incredibly important to do that. You'd be surprised at how things can land differently in different situations, for sure. It's a great question. What you're seeing on the screen right now is what I call a power question. I use it most of the times in our communication audits. And I want to share it with you because it's easy to set up and it's incredibly powerful when the data comes back to you. Again, we always want to be intentional with our survey questions. We don't want to ask stuff just because we can. Ask yourself always, what am I going to do with the data when it comes back to me? If you don't have an answer, you have to reconsider why you're asking it in the first place. This specific question will definitely fuel your communication plan. No doubts about it. So what I love to do is ask questions about the importance of a topic versus satisfaction with the content that's delivered on that very same topic. So for example, please help us understand how important the following, this is for a healthcare organization we worked with. Please help us understand how important the following MHS system-wide topics are to you. To the left there, you see leadership updates. And again, notice the specificity. I'm making sure I'm adding clarity to each one and defining it so people are thinking about the exact same thing and defining them the same way. Leadership updates, organizational updates, system-wide news and announcements, employee stories. 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing this for a client, there are also very specific strategic initiatives that we put on this as well. But I wanted to kind of make this a little more generic so we could teach it. There are topics along the left-hand side specifically defined, and then you create 2 columns. The first one is asking people to indicate how important is this topic to you, and you could see the options they had in the dropdown. The second column, how satisfied are you with the content you currently receive about this topic? And then you could see there's a satisfaction scale that they can fill out. What happens when these numbers come back for each column is that you can visually depict, and this is such a great tool for your editorial team, your communication team. At a glance, I can take what I receive from that and I can plot out, okay, for each topic, the blue bar represents the level of importance that topic is to them. The pink one is their level of satisfaction. If we are in a good place, we're going to see those bars be as equal as possible, if not satisfaction higher, the pink bar higher than the blue. At a glance here, I could see there are 2 specific topics that we are having issues with: leadership updates and employee stories. At a glance, I can see, wow, those are super important to them, but people aren't satisfied with them. I could take this and then take a look at my editorial plan in the past. What leadership updates did we have? What employee stories did we have? Are we missing them? Did we do a lot around those topics? But let's look at the content. Maybe it wasn't specific enough. Maybe I didn't make it relevant enough. It just really helps you pinpoint, gosh, these are areas within our editorial plan that we really need to pay attention to. I could also take this into our leaders. Maybe there's a lot of changes going on in my organization and leaders were a little reluctant to share information. Well, let me show you, leaders. It's affecting. People are taking notice. This is an incredible, important topic to our employees. However, we're not delivering it. And that presents a risk to our communication strategy overall. So it's a great, great tool to really fuel your content and your communication plan going forward. Qualitative best practices. Just want to give you some quick overviews of when you're actually running focus groups. The biggest risk here is having conversations that kind of spiral out of control. Again, we want to do something with the data that comes back to us. We want to make this a productive conversation as possible. They have veered way more virtual than ever these days. I rarely do a focus group in person anymore. I'm open to it. That's no problem doing it. But for convenience, for time, the virtual focus groups are incredibly powerful. But in order for them to be as powerful as possible, the use of a camera is crucial. That replaces your eye contact, even though it's over a screen. People need to see each other in order. Focus groups are the most effective when people feel they could trust everybody in the conversation. So having that eye contact matters, and you want to make sure that that is ingrained in that group and that people can actually make sure they turn on their camera when they're talking to you. Use what if scenarios. Again, the best ways to run these, it's all in how you ask questions. So instead of just saying, do you like it or don't you like it? Of course you can. Do you like the internet, the new internet redesign, or don't you? Sure, that's a great conversation starter, but your goal is to drill down as deep as possible. Really think about your interviewing skills. Um, if someone says, no, I don't really like it. Okay, what would you change? What would you change? I would change, I can't find the leadership section and I don't know where to go for my HR tools. Okay, so if we made that more apparent and we put that back on the homepage, how does that improve the way that you work? Really have people specify, again, those specific examples is what you're looking for in order to make it a productive conversation. So that what if scenario is great. You just don't want to stop it. Yes, no, I like it, I don't like it. Let's drill down a little deeper and get specific examples of what can we change? What can we do differently to make a difference, to move that needle again, to influence behavior? Don't try to do too much. You want to keep your focus groups intimate a little bit because everybody needs to talk. If you have big, huge sections of people who aren't participating, it erodes the confidence in the whole conversation itself. Again, that trust factor is everything in a focus group. So you want to make sure they're small enough so that you can individually call on people to help get them, everybody participating. And it really helps boost the trust factor overall when there's not just a specific group lurking kind of in the background. And then finally, it's a conversation. So when you go into those focus groups, I'm going to show you an example of a discussion guide template that you can use. The important thing is to obviously know that discussion guide inside and out. What's the goal of the focus group? What are your must knows before you end the focus group? Usually they're 45 minutes to an hour. What do you really need to get at before you end the focus group to really think that it was a successful session? Those are things you have to have cemented in your head. But no, it's supposed to be a conversation. You don't want to go in there just question number 2, question number 3. People again will clam up. The more you can make it an open conversation, the more rich insights you will get from that focus group and become more productive rather than just this grape session that we want to kind of avoid. So treat it like a conversation and really know your listening skills are just as important as your interviewing skills when you're conducting these. Want to give you a power question here. Again, if we're in a virtual format, and you can actually pull this off if you're in person as well, you can use some of the tools available to us that people now are so used to. One of them is being the polling tools, whether you're using Zoom, Teams, you could be in person and use Mentimeter or Slido. But it helps to say, again, with the intranet example here, it helps to start the conversation. So you can kick off the conversation with, the intranet homepage is my source for latest company-wide news and announcements. Show me your level of agreement with that statement. Push out the poll. People are used to taking them and they love them, and it helps get everybody participating. You get the responses back immediately, and it helps you with your follow-up conversations. So for those that picked 1 or 2, tell me what's missing. Why did you disagree with the statement? Why were you neutral? For those who loved it, gave 4 stars or 5 stars, give me an example. What really stands out to you so we can build upon it? But using those little polls throughout really helps get the conversation started, especially if you got some wallflowers in the group that are a little reluctant to speak up. It kind of gives them the confidence of, okay, yeah, here's the rating, and now I can just speak to that rating itself. It really helps people feel comfortable with talking about things. And the best thing you can do, the number one directive when you're conducting focus groups or interviews for that matter, is collect the quotes. That's what it's all about. Again, it's a conversation. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes to quotes, you can't make them up. they end up becoming so specific and help you really paint the picture of the why behind any numbers that you're seeing in a survey. It helps put the human element behind the numbers and the stats that you may be developing from your metrics or your surveys. So things that I love to look for from group to group and interview to interview is sample themes, overall effectiveness. Where are people going for news and why? If they're not using it, why not? Leadership communications. Do they feel leaders connect with employees? If they could hear about one topic, what would it be? Engagement. Do they feel connected to the organization? If not, what's missing? Do they know how they specifically contribute to success? If not, what are they missing? These are things that you're constantly thinking of as far as how to ask questions, how to get more insights, how to get specific examples in your conversations, whether you're in a focus group or in an interview. All right, this is just a takeaway. You guys will get a PDF of the deck here. Just wanted to show you what a discussion guide looks like. And of course, the topics will vary depending on what organization brought me in and what is the goal. You want to ask yourself, what does success mean for this focus group? What do I need to know? But then you just kind of plot it out. The most important thing of the takeaway is I do timestamp everything so that I can control the conversation and keep things moving within the hour that I'm with people. But, again, this inside and out before you go in. This is not meant to be a script of any way, but it just helps you plot out what is this conversation going to look and feel like? What are the must-haves, the must-knows before the conversation ends that I need to make sure I get out of anybody who's participating.
Hey, Sam, before you go, I see the manager's only thing there. Do you want to talk quickly about how it's important to keep those groups separate?
It's a great point, Steve. So rule of thumb, and I should put that in my rules of running focus groups effectively. I'll change that, but I never, ever, ever, this is a cardinal rule, mix people who are managers, people leaders with individual contributors. Those, even if they are not reporting to that manager, just having those different levels in the room will completely squash any kind of candid response to anything you're talking about. An individual contributor never wants to come across as negative or not knowing anything, and quite honestly, vice versa for a manager. I don't want to be seen that way in front of people who might report to me or might report to a colleague of mine. So you want to make it a safe space, and so make sure when you're assembling your focus groups, keep those two groups separate, and your results will be way more powerful. I appreciate that. Just a couple anecdotes about executive and stakeholder interviews. These are one-on-ones. It never really quite works scheduling wise and or just conversation wise to have high level leaders in a focus group. You want to do those one-on-one and have a more intimate conversation with them, not only to get more rich feedback from them, but this is your time to help set the stage for why communications is a strategic arm of your organization. You're talking to leaders about the role of communications. You're helping them understand how communications fits as a strategic arm of the organization, in addition to getting their insights and feedback. So these are just a really great way to establish relationships with your leadership and your main stakeholders across the organization. Because number one, they're going to help fuel that strategic content that we all need to talk about and help you establish your role as a strategic arm of the organization. So just wanted to, again, this is a great takeaway. These are the top 6 questions we always use as a baseline for executive interviews. Of course, we add in a lot more specific, detailed questions that relate to the client that has hired us. But if you start with these 6, it starts a really good conversation because we are getting to from a leadership perspective, what's the hottest topics? What are the things that keep you up at night? What are the things that employees need to know about any specific topic that you feel they're not getting? What is your role in communications? How do you see it? How do you want to connect better with employees across the organization? And how can communicators help? What are some of the barriers in this organization that we need to be aware of? What are some industry topics that employees need to know in order to really understand the business so they can contribute to success? It really helps give you that strategic angle that you need to fuel your communication strategy and your editorial strategy. But again, having these conversations really helps turn on the light bulb with leaders across the organization to see communications as that strategic partner. And I just wanted to give you stakeholder questions. We, of course, customize these according to whoever we're talking to, and whoever it's appropriate to talk to. This is our opportunity, again, more to make partnerships. These are usually areas of the organization that work very closely with communications or should. And it's important to really understand their perspective. How can we better work together? What are the things or risks we need to be aware of in certain areas that fall under HR or IT? How can we, with IT, how can we use emerging technologies a little bit better? Talk to us about how we could work together to roll out some new tools. This is your opportunity to really help cement those relationships so you guys can work a lot closer together going forward in a more strategic light. Wanted to also do a little section. This is super quick. We do whole workshops on AI with communications, but AI can really help. The one problem, not problem, but hurdle with measurement is, my gosh, data crunching, the struggle is real. We are pressed for time as it is. It does take time to synthesize data, to go through anecdotal research, to go through statistical research and figure out what does it all mean? What is the story it's trying to tell? So just wanted to give you some ideas of how you can use AI these days to help really incredibly speed, they're a game changer, to speed up the process of analyzing data when it comes back to you. From summarizing themes to finding quotes and to help tell a story. We're going to end today's session about talking about dashboards and telling stories from data that you get. You can definitely use AI to draft those storyboards for you. So these are just quick and easy prompts that we have used time and time again, whether you're doing quick polls, whether you're doing surveys, town hall feedback, focus group interviews, from pull out the top three themes that I'm seeing in the set of data and action steps to take going forward. AI can definitely do that. Focus groups, pull out the quotes that really highlight the top 3 key messages that we talked about in these conversations. Another favorite of mine is comparing stuff. So again, here is a data set, or here are quotes or the transcript from managers versus individual contributors. Pull out the differences. How did they answer a specific questions differently, or what were the similarities between how they answered them? It's just a great way, a quick and fast and efficient way. Things that would take me normally before AI would take me weeks and weeks to kind of pull all the stuff together and help find that story thread. AI can do it for you in a matter of minutes, which is incredibly powerful. And then for your storyboard and report, I love to keep it simple and just ask AI, okay, now I've got all these different trends that we've pulled out, these consistent patterns, maybe these gaps, I've got quotes. Help me organize it into a story. And for employees, I love to just follow, here's what we asked, here's what we heard, here's the evidence, and I pull in quotes and stats that back that up. What does it all mean, and what to expect going forward? If you really think about dashboards and even stories, not even a dashboard, if you want to do a quick story about the communication audit that you just conducted, those are the things people want to hear. So it's great to have AI help you organize your insights accordingly. For leaders, I keep it even more concise, and it's what's working, what's not, and what's next. And I'm going to show you an example of that in 2 seconds. All right. As far as it comes to the actual dashboard, I've become not a big fan of the word dashboard as of late. It's become a huge buzzword in our industry because dashboards and data, Steve said earlier, gosh, data is kind of boring. It's not if you think about it as a story itself. It becomes just like the content we create on a day-to-day basis if we're treating it correctly. So taking some of those formulas of what's working, what's not, what's next, those 5 steps of what we learned, we can start to really turn data into stories that are incredibly interesting, that people do pay attention to, that people do feel heard and then It helps you make sure that your content going forward connects with the audiences you're creating content for. So what do we want to do? First and foremost, avoid the cookie cutter approach to reporting back data. So often, this is what I see over and over again. When I ask people, how do you report what you found back to your internal audiences or to your leaders? I get a PowerPoint with a bunch of charts. And again, this is not that this content, these metrics, they are important, and I'm not diminishing their importance. However, this isn't helping anybody understand what works and what doesn't. We've got to tell a story. This is great for your communication team, maybe, to help them understand where traffic is, you know, where people are going, where views are going. Fantastic. If I go ahead and forward this on to a stakeholder or a leader within my organization, they're going to just say, okay, and so what? Is that good? Are those 14,000 view or sessions in October? Is that a good thing? What am I comparing it to? We've got to tell a story. We've got to take our data and bring it to life through a narrative. So you, just like any other content that you create, you want to ask yourself who you send in the dashboard to and why should they care? And this simple template is something I'm giving you as well to help set up your data stories, just like any other content that you create. You want to put your audience first. Who are they? What's important to them? And then what communication efforts can we pull? The metrics and the stories and the behavior statements. What topics have we communicated? What campaigns have we created that will help us tell the story of what's important to them? Answer the questions of what's important to them. If you put this on a simple little grid, you'll have an at-a-glance view of, okay, if I'm creating a dashboard for leaders, here are the stories we want to tell. Here's the data we want to look at in order to bring that data, those stories to life. These are the two formulas that we already went over. What's working, what's not, what's next is a great formula, quick and easy, that you could use for your internal clients and your leaders. For if you want to do more of a story, like I'm going to post a story on the internet about our latest audit, you could follow that storyboard formula. Very quick and easy, and will help bring your data to life. So a quick example before we tie it up for today. Here is a scenario. We need to update leaders on how well our communications about a new company strategy are working. We launched an executive video to humanize the strategy and show employees how they can contribute. Now we have two ways to report back. We could either do it the old way, which literally tells people nothing. And this is usually what I see is a bunch of charts and a bunch of bullet points. Those stats are incredibly important, but nobody's going to understand what they mean or take the time to go through them all. Instead, let's paint a picture and do the new way and tell a story. First, what did we learn? What did we ask? How did our leadership video help employees understand our new company strategy? That's what we asked. What did we learn? We learned that there's a difference in this answer between people who are behind a computer and people who are on the floor, perhaps in a manufacturing plant. And we're about to tell that story. We're going to take our metrics on the left and visualize them. 8 out of 10 employees opened, 6 out of 10 viewed. We're going to connect them to behavior, how we influence behavior, and use our behavior statements to the right. Out of the people that opened and viewed, 68% indicated that they understood what needs to be done to achieve our goals. 72% say they're confident in the future. And then a quick narrative at the very bottom. What's working, what's not, what to expect. Video's a strong channel to communicate to this group of employees. Here's what we did. We kept it 90 seconds in length. The results we're seeing, most of these employees are understanding how to contribute to success and have high confidence in our future. But let's complete the story and compare it to what we did see with our offline employees. What a difference these visuals make, right? As opposed to just a smattering of charts. We obviously see a drop off in our metrics, and let's tell them that. 60% of our employees don't use the computer. Only 3 out of 10 of them opened up the video. Only 2 of them viewed it. That's a huge drop off. And look how it affects behavior to the right. We go from 68% saying they understand to 52. 72% saying they're confident to only 48%. And we tell our story. At the very bottom, quick, easy bullets for leaders to understand, what are we looking at here? How is this going to affect what we do going forward? How are we going to change? that is way more effective than just this typical smattering of just a bunch of data overload, right? We want to tell a story with our data. And when you do that, it helps you shift your mentality from going into leaders and saying, I think we should communicate differently. I think we need to take a new approach. Instead of saying that, which usually lands flat, you can use data as the strongest piece of ammunition you have to change the way you communicate, because you could say the data shows we need to. Here's what we learned. Here's how we're going to change it going forward. And that really helps push your communications to the next level and help you evolve over time as a communicator inside your organization and a strategic partner. So I know that was a lot. It's a lot in a whole day. I honestly do have a half-day version of this that we can kind of spread it out a little bit more. But wanted to give you the best of the best that I know as far as how you can use measurement in your communications to help literally fuel your communication plan and cement you as that strategic counselor inside the organization. So Steve, I don't know if we have any other questions out there.
We had one quick one from Cynthia that I promised
Hi,
to get to.
Cynthia.
I often find that surveys and other things work well with internal audiences, but wondering about ideas or best practices for gaining insight for external content that may I don't know if you have time to answer that. Outside of clicks and page views, it can be hard to gauge how external audiences feel. Thoughts?
Yeah, so external audiences, using social media is a good way. A sentiment analysis with external is incredibly powerful because, again, people are so comfortable with commenting in external spaces. That's how we all communicate these days. So you could start with sentiment analysis just to see how people are receiving certain topics. If you want to drill down a little further, that's organizing external focus groups, which are a little more complicated because you usually have to compensate for time specifically. You have to identify people who are willing to take the time to talk in a group. Those can be done. It just takes a little bit more time. Obviously, the external survey works as well with using some of those open-ended questions. If it is a level, if you're a nonprofit and you're talking about donors, about constituents who are very close to the organization, that is a perfect opportunity to set up some one-on-one interviews, just asking people for their perspective to just help fuel success for the organization. When people are that connected, they don't mind participating, but those one-on-one conversations can be your best bet as far as getting that external perspective that you might need.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Cindy.